Játék szépeltér Yenisei ma idéskízni initially Billigana Bushashin, Kinachini Dashache, Billigana Dashanali. Welcome back to Resball. It was a confusing 2026 trade deadline for the Detroit Pistons. We're going to talk a little bit about the games, but really everything has to do with the trade deadline and what happened. So let's get started right about now. Andy, let everybody know where they can find you before we go off on a rant.
You mean you're not super happy? You can find me on Twitter at D_D_Pistons_fan.
Before we get to the trade deadline, very briefly, what do you think about the team and the games we've seen since then? Embarrassing loss to the Wizards last night. We're recording this on Friday, February 6th, right before the game against the Knicks. I'm kind of glad we're recording it before because if it goes bad, it probably would bleed into this. So probably a good idea to just do it now before that. Or I mean, even if they win, it's better to do it for us. But what do you think is since the last time we recorded with games against the Wizards? We had some Warrior wins that gutted it out against Denver. What do you think?
I mean, the team has been very consistent as far as like who they are, which in some ways, going back to the trade deadline, it's like you have a very good sample of who they are and what they need. So we could probably do something to address that. But overall, I mean, the and for everything I say about the trade deadline later, a lot of people will look at the Wizards loss that just happened and use that as fuel, but that loss has nothing to do with what I'm going to say. Like I rarely make a big deal out of any single game because during a long 82 game season, all kinds of stuff happens. Great teams lose to terrible teams, like no big deal. It's just one of 82. So my frustration has nothing to do with that game.
Thank you for saying that. That's the point I was trying to make with the Nick game. It's like it's just one game, right? Especially right after the trade deadline or the first time a player debuts or the first time a squad steps out there without a player and the wins or loss, immediately the fan reaction was always going to be like, see, they shouldn't have gotten rid of him, or see, they needed to get rid of him, whatever, it's a reactionary phase. And we don't want to be in that reactionary phase because we still very much are. I don't emotional's not the word. We're just very, very confused. Again, as the title of this podcast, the confusing trade deadline. Here for the Pistons. The only thing I have to say about the games I put is Stu hurt question mark because that game last night against the Wizards, he did look hurt. But honestly, like I am a little bit worried that everybody seems to have some kind of wear and tear on them. Cade's been dealing with the wrist injury during side out the Wizards game the second half due to knee issues, especially if Stu and Duran are hurt. Like, woof, that's a big blow. Seeing as how Paul Reed, Toulouse Smith. Sure, we like them, but we don't want to have to rely on them for a big stretch of games. And one of the things that I'm going to keep reiterating, there's only four games that separate the Pistons and the 2 and 3 seed right now, which are the Boston Celtics and the Knicks. Keep that in mind. And I think it's like 6 games, something like that, between them and the Raptors and who is the other seeded five? Cleveland. Thank you. Yes. So keep that in mind. They do not have that gigantic of a lead in number one. You got to keep that in mind as well. And why bring up the Stu and Duran? If those two get hurt, like you could easily see 5 game losing streak, and then all of a sudden, once they come back, they're the 2 or the 3 seed. It's not the end of the world, but it is would be like a little bit of a snowball to begin. Like, oof, man, this is not that's not an easy thing to maintain the number one spot.
So, as I mean, and we've talked about how much depth this team has, but at certain positions, we have no depth because, like, if you look at the point guard position, with Danis being in the G League for the game against the Wizards, um, and Ivy being gone now, and unless you're going to use Asar in like an on-ball role with the bench, we we don't have a backup point guard besides Danis. So it's like if he were to sustain an injury, I don't know what the team would do now in terms of who's running the backup unit. Um, so the team does have depth, but at certain positions we're very thin. And in some of those positions, we might not necessarily be thin, but in the way that JB has run the team, like I think the first 10 games of the season, we were seeing a lot of Asar on ball, and then it disappeared. And then against the Wizards, we got to see some more of it. But it's like those are things that had we been doing it all along, yes, it could have cost us some wins, but I think the team would be in a better place.
Speaking of Dennis Jenkins, I haven't checked today. Has there been any announcement that he's been signed to an actual contract yet?
He has not, but he's supposed to be active playing tonight. So this would be his last game. So I'm assuming their next game is Monday, and that gets done before the next game Monday.
If not, your thoughts?
Um, there's absolutely no reason, no excuse why it shouldn't be done. And the team honestly can't function now, which in some ways is ridiculous to say that the team can't function. I mean, okay, maybe that's an overstatement because everything runs on Cade. He can't play 48 minutes. And when he's out of the game, I mean, as ugly as we liked the Karras and Ivy minutes when they're out there together, I would not want to see Karras and Herter out there together, and that's supposed to be like a solution. So
It's not. It's not ridiculous to say this team can't function without Dennis Jenkins. Ask any Nick fan the last 2 seasons about Deuce, and I heard that from a bunch of different Nick fans. I think Chris LeBron might have even said it on her podcast. Shout out! Like if Deuce goes down, I'm like, what do they do? You can't play Jalen Brunson 48 minutes, and then you got to scramble and do the weird like Josh Hart at point guard and things like that. Because even if it is just 10 minutes in a playoff series, yeah, you got to do that because otherwise you're missing 10 to 15 minutes without a point guard and your offense for 99% of NBA teams needs that guy. And if that guy isn't there to fill in and know what to do in 10, 15 minutes, that swings a game very easily. So, yeah, I don't think that's ridiculous to say. Right. I don't know how to begin the trade deadline talk other than just to say we're disappointed. You and I text last night, and you're like, "What's the grade you would give it?" And we, without even like, I text my grade, and you text your grade both at the same time. So it's not like we reacted to each other's grade. Andy said D minus. I said F plus. So we're pretty much in the range. I'm going to explain my grade real quick. Again, nothing about the Jaden Ivey deal makes sense to me. But I did give it a plus because I was like, oh, at least they moved up. I've had more time to sit on it, and now I'm like, no, this is an F minus. This is an F minus. Like, there's no way to spin this other than a failure. Let me look at my notes before because there's so many things about it that I could just go off on. I think where I wanted to start though is what was the plan for Jaden Ivey? Jaden Ivey gets traded to Chicago, and because they're in such disarray, him and Anthony Simons have to play right away. Like seriously, they shipped them via DHL, rolled them out of the bubble wrap, and was like, "All right, here's your jersey, guys. Here's your shoes. Go play." How many minutes did Jaden Ivey play in his first game as a Bull? Remember, he's supposed to be hurt. He's supposed to be limited. We didn't want to play him 20 minutes. How many minutes did Jaden Ivey play in his debut as a Bull? Near mute.
27?
33 minutes.
Ooh.
Number one, what's your reaction to immediately after he gets traded, Jaden Ivey is rolled out for 33 minutes?
Well, there's a few things. So one is, and I'm gonna ask people to see if we can find out when was his minutes restriction lifted during the year, or did he even have one when he came back, or was it
Very
just
good, very good, very good question. I don't think those were ever asked or ever answered.
because I would like to look back statistically to be like, when he did have a minutes restriction, how was he playing? When the minutes restriction was gone and it was just JB limiting him to his random 17 minutes or whatever, because I would just like to see how that works out. But I also saw JB say something about um them wanting to have Ivy go to a place where he can audition for his next contract because that's, what he's looking for, and that's not something that, they could focus on because they're focused on, winning or whatever they're focused on doing. But for me, it's crazy that anyone would logically, and nobody wants to complain because the Pistons record, they're first place in the East. So that means you can say that they have done nothing wrong. My question is, why did you? I know the team was winning, but why was there such a focus on Levert over Ivy, where they really never gave it a chance for him to come back and like make it work? And I would have thought with his age and his talent, and he has not looked great in his return, but I wouldn't expect this year to be phenomenal. But what I will say is the red flag area or the area of concern we had for him a lot was his shooting. And over his, 4-year NBA career, he has improved his three-point shooting. So even if he doesn't have the explosiveness, I'm sure he can improve in other areas. And with his work ethic, I don't think he's done. So I look to him. I look for him to be successful with the Bulls or wherever he ends up going next. And it'll be another one of those Pistons that it's like, oh, why did we end up letting him go before he became something that we didn't think he could become?
So to answer your questions, if you're on YouTube or if you're not on YouTube, excuse me, you'll just listen to the Summit Pod. I would looking up when the minutes restriction was because I don't ever remember there being talk of minutes restriction for Ivy. But according to Yahoo Sports, Fantasy Pros, Facebook, a couple other places, they're reporting that of January 9th, 2026, Detroit Pistons guard is no longer on formal minutes restriction. So let's go take a look at after January 9th, 2026. You know how many games that was? It was 11 games. So we got to see Ivy for 11 games without a minutes restriction, and they played him 17.1 minutes per game. Do you have any idea what they played him before his supposed minutes restriction was lifted?
17.1 minutes per game.
Let's look here. It doesn't tell me here. Hang on just a second. I'm gonna have to open it in a different window just to get the look at that really quick. So for the season, Ivy was playing 16.8 minutes per game. So it's like, yeah, real great that his minutes restriction was lifted there, and he's in 11 games. If you believe you can determine anything about a player after 11 games, you're out of your mind. In these 11 games since Ivy's minutes restrictions were lifted, quote unquote, 7.8 points per game, 2.3 rebounds, 1 assist, 0.2 steals, 0.5 blocks, and 1.5 turnovers per game. Shooting splits in these 11 games with Ivy's minutes restriction lifted, quote unquote, 50% from 2, 38.3% from 3, and 66.7% from the free throw line. What do you think of these numbers now that you're looking at him without his minutes restriction, Andy?
I mean, the free throw shooting is disappointing, but
It's 4 or
I,
6, by the way, too, as well. Anybody out there that's anything that's below double digits and a shot at
oh yeah, that's
but
just
don't
yeah.
look at it.
Well, for me, the biggest problem is going to be, and this doesn't get talked about enough, like outside of Monty Williams doing what he did, Ivy's used to playing a lot of minutes and starting games. And that just, it was a completely different role. And we didn't even know what his role was during time. So it's just unfortunate to let him go without actually giving this the chance that it needed. And I know everyone is so caught up on their championship aspirations that they're like, we don't have time for this to play out. I think that is so short sighted because you're looking for the assets and the players that are going to allow you to make future moves, and giving up on him in this trade like that, I think is just a waste.
This is making me more angry on the inside. Supposedly, Ivy had a minutes restriction before January 9th. 22 games Jaden Ivey played before that January 9th minutes restriction was lifted. And in those 22 games before January 9th, Ivy played 16.7 minutes per game. There's not even a minute difference between when his minutes restriction was lifted and when he was not there. Okay, I'm just gonna exit out of this so I don't explode here, and we can move on to the next point. So, again, what was the plan? To me, it's like, okay, so Karras was brought in to replace Ivy from the very beginning, right?
I mean, unless the knee procedure he needed to start the season. At that point, when that happened, they just made the choice like, we're moving on. Like that must have been the decision, which again, I still don't agree with.
You know what else makes me think that? The like, oh, so Karras was meant to replace him all along. What's Karras been dealing with the last, I think it's like 10 games?
Vertigo.
And gee, what happened in these last 11 games that we just saw, supposedly? The minutes restriction. Jaden Ivey's
Oh,
supposed to be off the minutes restriction. Karras LeVert's not here.
yeah, his role didn't change. Like nothing. They were done with him.
I mean, what does Karras do that Ivy could not do, either currently or next season and beyond?
I mean, what most people will say is that he's a better defender and probably his finishing percentage at the rim is probably higher because that's an area Ivy struggles with.
Is that true?
Um, I'm probably gonna say yes just because I
You and I looked at it at the beginning of the season. You don't remember, do you?
mm,
Remember, when I was looking at who could Ivy become, one of the shot charts we brought up was Karras LeVert, and you were like, I don't want him to become like this. And it was very clear, like, oh, Ivy's starting to get past that, and it's easy to see him progressing. And he's already pretty much at where Karras is at now. So that's why I bring this up. Even if you believed like that's who Ivy is, it's like Karras isn't doing better than that. And he's getting older. Like, if even if you believed what Ivy's shot chart is now is where he's going to be, it's the same thing as Karras.
ugh.
Not gonna lie, this reminds me of the Sadiq Bey for James Wiseman trade, because it does seem like you're doing this for a personal take on a player rather than like team building aspects. I mean, number one, this is not a good sign. I think JB and Trajan are in sync, maybe in a bad way in this instance, not necessarily for everybody. But I think in this instance, they did work together to bury not only Ivy's talent, but they killed his trade value, right? I mean, just think of last offseason. If you had said, "Oh, Jaden Ivey's available for trade," what do you think the reaction would be?
Oh, they would have had takers. There would have been takers. That's like, yeah.
Yeah, everybody after last season was like, "Oh, it's too bad he broke his leg. Ah, it's not that serious of an injury. He still seems to be on an all-star track." And they hyped him up in the offseason too, and then everything they did since then was just like, well, I don't know if he's really healthy. Yeah, we're not really going to play him. And then JB's like, I just want to trust Karras more and all that. All of that both stuck him down the depth chart to be the 11th man, which I heard that criticism of the trade also is like, well, the Bulls and the Pistons swapped 11th man, I guess, is what it boiled down to, which when you look at the actual rotations and how it plays out, it's like, I mean, it's factually right. How does this team how does this trade make the team better? That's my number one question. How does bringing in Kevin Herter, whatever's left of Dario Saric, and this protected pick swap make the team better?
Um, you want to say what I've heard or what I think? Because it's very different. Um,
And I think
in
we should confront both, though.
so in so what I've heard is that Herder is a better player in terms of Ivy when you just look at defensively, he's going to be better. He's a little bit bigger. His career 3-point shooting percentage, he's a high volume shooter, which again, I think Ivy could do more of that. Um, he's going to have less turnovers and make better decisions, which I believe that's probably true. And then he is a better rim finisher, or his 2-point percentage is much better. Um, and honestly, he's probably had to develop that because his 3-point shooting has gone south for the last 2 seasons. Um, but my honest opinion in terms of my take of does this make the team better? The answer is no. What it does is it gives them insurance for, let's say LeVert is unable to, I want to say unable to return to his good play, but his good play is, and I'm not trying to knock the guy because obviously dealing with health stuff, but his numbers have gradually gotten worse all season, and which should happen if he's dealing with health stuff. But I mean, we're hoping he can get back to how he started the season, which still wasn't great. Like, honestly, without the extra year, the signing of Levert should be looked at Sacramento signing Schroeder, where it's like, oh, this was not a good signing. Like, we could have made better choices. This was not a good decision. Um, I think if the Pistons could have moved him, they would have, but they couldn't. Like, he hasn't played great. He's got another year left, and he's got health issues. Like, who's trading for that guy? Like, that's not going to happen. So, in my opinion, Herder is, in case Levert is not available, they've moved Ivy, and JB is happier with Herder filling that role than with Ivy, which for me personally, maybe, maybe you can, and this is a small margin, maybe you could say Herder is going to be better for the rest of the season for them to make a deep playoff run. My counter argument is, had we kept Ivy and had he played better, he actually has more value depending on what is going to happen with him in the offseason. And it's not like he can command a giant contract with how this season has gone. But I don't know if it's true where I heard it, but I heard someone say something about Ivy didn't want to sign with the team long term, but who knows how accurate any of that stuff is.
Yeah, because he wants to sign long term with the team that has like 45 shooting guards. That's I'm sure his agent. I was gonna make a joke if Ivy made it through the trade deadline of like the person most upset by it is his agent. Now he's like, damn it, I gotta negotiate. I'm sure the reenactment. Tell me that you just traded my client Jaden Ivey. Just tell me that. Tell me.
So Jaden Ivey has just been traded
Yes. Where did you trade us
to a team of all guards, the Chicago Bulls.
God damn it. That was probably exactly what happened. Like, you just when you think you got free of this situation, at least they're playing him right away, though. So maybe it'll be better. But especially when they traded him, they still had Io and Obi White and all these dudes. So cleared out a little bit. So hopefully RV can get some time there. Um, but yeah, the let's follow the quote unquote logic of this trade because the number one thing is everybody's like, we need more shooters. They'll tune in ESPN or any basketball show. They're like, Detroit needs more shooting. They can't function without this. Well, Kevin Herter, he's a tall white guy. Of course, everybody's going to be like, he's a shooter. The last 2 seasons he's played for. Well, now since he's sitting over the Piston, and this season and last season he will play for 4 different teams. Start there, Andy. If you play for 4 different teams in 2 years, what does that normally mean?
That normally means that the team is not interested in keeping you.
Or you're James Harden, apparently. But I digress. The last 2 seasons, Kevin Herter in 2024-2025 shot 33.8% from 3-point range and 5.7 attempts per game. This season, 2025-2026 with the Bulls, Kevin Herter shot 31.4% from 3-point range on 5.1 3-point attempts per game. This is a declining player, people. And there's a guy that doesn't really rebound that well. Like, don't even talk to me about defense. I don't know who's out there saying he's a better defender than Harris or Ivy. Again, I go back to my question: what does Karras do that Ivy can't? Like, he should still be able to fill in that role. Why would you have to bring in this guy here? And if you're out there, again, the logic that I've heard is like, well, Herter's always been a good shooter. That's something that doesn't go away. You get him and you hope that he can round back into form. Shout out to Sarah Boz over on the Downtown Deuce show. I was listening to them, and she brought up a great point. She said, if you hope Herter can get his shooting back, why didn't you have the same patience for Ivy? Like, it makes no sense. You get a guy who's been on the decline the last 2 years. This would be his 4th team in 2 years. People are passing him around because they don't want that contract. And you're being, just give him some time. Meanwhile, the 23-year-old kid, you're like, get out of here, man. We don't have time for you. Like it's stupid. It's illogical. There is no logic there. Meanwhile, meanwhile, let's not just look at the Pistons. The Celtics traded for a player that murders us every time we played the Bulls, right? In Nikola Vucevic. If you're not worried about that trade, then I guess you weren't watching either the Celtic games or the Bulls games. Again, shout out to Boz and Downtown Deuce. They were like, they were like, in it too when they saw that trade of like, we don't want to see Vooch on the Celtics. The Cavs got a healthier and taller point guard who is better than Garland. And I mean, James Harden kills people when he's not in an elimination game. So if we don't make it to 7 games against Cleveland, he's probably going to murder them. And again, just being available, he's going to be more available than Garland was. The Hornets have huge offensive firepower. They could care less about defense, but they're another team that, like, if they get going, the Pistons don't have the firepower to keep up with LaMelo, Kobe White, Brandon Miller, Ryan Kalkbrenner. I know they traded a couple other guys there. And of course, Con Knipple, shout out Con. And the other part of it too is like, did Trajan Langdon get duped? Maybe I heard yesterday, or no, not yesterday, Wednesday. But both Amari Sankofa of Detroit Free Press and Eric Vincent of sorry, the EV. I'm blanking on the top title. I think is who he reports for. They both reported there was something else coming after the Ivy trade. They said, be on the lookout. Detroit's going to do something else, and then nothing else came about. And both of those guys don't say things like that unless there's something in the pipelines that they know about. They're not just going to say things to say things. So a part of me is like, "Ooh, I wonder if Trajan had something lined up and then kind of got duped as a result." And if you're out there thinking, well, maybe it's in off season, they did like a wink winker. I'm like, oh, so you don't use the trade deadline to improve then, huh? Because you know what? This is the second straight year where all Trajan did was get players that nobody else wanted. They got Dennis Schroeder last year. Why did they get Dennis Schroeder, Andy? Do you remember?
Wasn't he like the oddball out in the trade, so they just took him as salary?
Well, he was not just the oddball in the trades. You don't remember? Do you remember the Dennis Schroeder trade saga last year? Or do you even remember where he started last year?
Didn't he get moved to like multiple teams? Like,
He started in Brooklyn. He played well, quote unquote, too good. So they traded him to Golden State, who didn't want him. They shipped him as part of the Jimmy Butler deal over to Miami. They didn't want him either, so they kicked him off to Utah. And Utah was ready to just cut him and get out of there. And then Trajan's like, oh, I'll take him. And then came in. And again, I just named 4 teams. My mind here, another player that got passed around to 4 different teams. And you're like, hey, give me that guy. And now, again, second straight year. Who wants to trade for Kevin Herter?
and I guess for me,
Nobody, Andy. The answer is nobody.
well, for me, it's like, was Ivy's value really that low that it's like nobody would just take him? Because what confused me about the trade is how much money we had to take back. And I know people say, well, we go to pick swap. That pick swap is virtually worthless.
Stick a pin in that. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
Yeah, second straight year where all Trajan Langdon did was get players that nobody else wanted. Nobody else wanted Dennis Schroeder. That's why he's passed around to 4 different teams in one season. Nobody wanted Kevin Herter. It's like, come on, man. This guy's been on the decline the last 2 years. And shout out to Jack Kelly. This isn't a criticism of Jack. This isn't aimed at Jack because Jack did put out a video today. Well, first he put out a video on Thursday or Wednesday, maybe it was Tuesday, whenever the Ivy trade was announced, saying how much he'll miss Ivy, and it was like his first real kind of heartbreak with the team, the player he really liked that got traded away. So go check that out. But then today on Friday, he did post a video of like the logic behind it. Again, this isn't directed at Jack; it's directed at Trajan Langdon and anybody that thinks this way. Because even Jack was like, I don't like it, but I think this is the reason why they did it, is Ivy's cap hold. I think he's arguing that the reason why the Pistons traded Jaden Ivey is because he has a $30 million cap hold in the offseason. So even if they didn't re-sign him, they would be on the books for $30 million until they either sign him to a smaller deal or sign and trade him. So it's like, it ruins your cap flexibility. I apologize if you have kids in the car or you're a child that listens to this. This might be a pod where I do go over the cursing limit. So be warned, change right now. Like, holy shit, man. You're selling us on cap space. Like if this is the argument from the front office of like, we need cap flexibility. Do we not remember? This is exactly what Troy Weaver did, right? Like you got to be kidding me. You cannot be selling us on, well, we're going to have a lot of flexibility in the offseason. Oh, great. Gee, I wonder what that's going to yield because there's so many good free agents. So many of them want to come here, and you have so much that you really want to trade away.
Yes. I mean, free agency doesn't really exist anymore. Like, and that's one of the reasons why the trade deadline has gotten to be so busy is that teams do their free agency at the trade deadline because most of the players who you want or need to get don't become available as free agents. So I understand where they're saying they need to get rid of that cap hold, but my question is going to be for what? And we'll see it in the when free agency comes in the off season, where it's like they don't do anything that's going to require this cap space. All of a sudden, that it's like, yeah, we had to dump him at the trade deadline. I don't get it.
Sense. And again, stick a pin in that with the cap flexibility and like we needed that 30 million off our books. Something that Andy brought up that I totally forgot about, even though I'm the one that like talked about it all year. It's why I've been so upset with this thing. It made me even think about things other than the things that I brought up. The traded player exception they created means nothing. Well, real quickly, they can still use it until the new year begins, which is July 1st, I believe. I think they can still use it up until July 1st. But how often does that happen? Andy, can you name an impactful move using the traded player exception that happens after the season and before free agency? Can you name anything? I rack my brain. Anybody out there, if you can name one, name one. But honestly, like I came up with nothing.
I don't think that's a thing.
So to me, again, this is just me. This traded player exception that ended up resulting in nothing implies that Trajan either doesn't have a plan or he can't execute his plan. I mean, and both lead to the same final destination is you get fired because you either you're like, oh, I'm going to do these things and then don't have the moves that's set up to do it, or you're like, I'm going to do these things and then I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and then it never happens. Either one, again, is not a good thing.
Yeah, I mean the obvious move that everyone saw was Orlando moving Tyus Jones to get under the tax, and they ended up giving the other team 2 second-round picks, and then also the Cavaliers dumping Lonzo Ball for 2 second-round picks so that they could also save a ton of tax money. And I had thought the Pistons
Sorry
would
to
have
cut you
gotten
off.
those picks.
Sorry to cut you off. There's also the Hunter Tyson one, which if you listen to the NBA front office show, Keith Smith's been saying for like a month that the guy that is going to get traded is Hunter Tyson because that particular player move gets them under the luxury tax. So it was that one that he ended up getting moved to Brooklyn for picks. And I think the Celtics did it for Minot, Xavier Tillman, and who's the other one? Do you remember there were three guys they moved off of that they did that exact same thing for?
Yeah, I don't remember that one, but I think, and maybe I'm probably misquoting this, but I think Pressey in Oklahoma City, I think he actually got a guy and made him an NBA player so that they could include him in a trade, so they didn't have like there's things you do to manufacture these picks that we're just too lazy to do or not smart enough to do, or we just wanted Dario Saric so bad that we couldn't do this. I don't know.
Croatian sensation 2.0, right? Ay, ay, ay. And I mean, we're just bringing it up here. This is terrible asset management. Number one, you didn't play a guy on his rookie deal who was productive. This is not like somebody who you're like, I don't know, whatever. Up to the injury, he's been productive. And then all of a sudden, the injury came and you're like, get out of here. So you didn't play a guy on his rookie deal who was productive for you. You created this traded player exception that you did absolutely nothing with. You continually bring in players that are declining. I'm sorry. I mean, maybe I don't want to put Tobias in this because his defense has been out of this world. But I mean, from a number standpoint and just being in terms of age and yeah, cross your fingers, pray to whoever you believe in your faith that Tobias stays healthy. He's dealing with hip stuff now. I mean, human beings when they get older dealing with hip things is not a good thing. Well, other than that, again, all these veterans you're bringing in are declining. Karis LeVert, Dennis Schroeder, Kevin Herter, even before he gets here, right? The veterans you're bringing in are guys that are declining, right? It's not like you've got this trade and we're able to bring in guys that had some kind of value. Again, you got guys in here that nobody else has really wanted or nobody else wanted to pay what you paid them. You don't get any picks either in this. Like you got 0 picks for Ivy. It was a pick swap. Who does that? A protected pick swap. Who does that? Do you remember anybody that's ever done not only a pick swap, but then like, oh, I'm going to protect this pick swap? Like, you're an idiot if you do that.
I mean, you see that when teams give up, they call them fake second round picks,
Yeah,
where it's like, oh, I'm giving you this second round pick, but it's protected for the first 29 available players. It's like, yeah, you gave us nothing, but you can list it as a swap or a pick.
this is one of those things like whoever, I mean, obviously it's Trajan that agreed to it, but you're like, no, if you want off that money, then give me an extra second or like give me something without protection. Like you're the one in the financial hole. And we said it at the beginning of this. The Pistons do not need to do anything. It's not the course that we would have taken. But again, if you're in the position where you're like, I don't have to do this. I mean, you joke they just needed Dario Saric that much. That's the only side of it. I'm like, again, they're like, well, we need Kevin Herter, we need Dario Saric. It's like, no, you have all the leverage here in negotiation because you don't have to do anything. They're the ones that need to get off this money, man. They're trying to get Giannis, so you got to needle them. And could you not just trade Ivy at the draft for a move like this, right? To move up in the draft. Guess what? You would keep your own pick and you would get an extra pick at the draft. This is a very good draft. I mean, I've been slow with draft coverage. I haven't done a draft show in months, just for work related things and whatever, but definitely trying to keep up with all of it. The top 20 in this draft is probably going to be very hard to get into, but we're not talking about a top 20 pick either. Right now, the pick, the swap makes the Pistons go from like 29 to like 21 to 23. Again, could you not just hold on to Ivy and trade him then? I understand contract and negotiating, but this is people have done this already where at the draft, they're like, oh, they're only trading this. And then they get to free agency and there's a sign and trade. And it's like, okay, that was part of the draft night swap. So again, could you not just trade Ivy at the draft to move up and get an extra pick like this? And maybe, just maybe, Ivy could help you move up further than the 21st or the 23rd pick, right? If there's somebody out there that still believes in him, if he has a great 1 or 2 playoff game burst, and there's a team that falls out of the top 10 in this draft too, like if you fall out of the top 10 in this draft and you're a Wizards, you're a Pacers, you're a team that absolutely blows, if you fall out of the top 10, you're going to hate it. Yeah, there is still talent there, but I mean, oh my gosh, the top 3 in this draft. It's very, very rare that you find a top 3 like this where all 3 of them are like, yeah, I could see them being like, all NBA type of dudes. So yeah, I didn't, again, the return to this is why it moved into the F minus for me. Because at first I was like, at least they moved up a little bit with the swap. And then the further I thought about it, the more I was like, why did you just hang on to Ivy and help him move up to you? And everything. How do these things, everything we laid out, Herter, Sarich, the pick swap, not doing anything else, trusting in Karis, quote unquote. How do these make the team better? How does any of this make the team better?
I don't think it does. I don't I don't think it does. I mean, when I saw the trade, my honest first reaction was they did this because Herter's money would allow them to get a higher salary, and Herter was expiring, and the other team didn't want to take back a salary like Karis LeVert. And they didn't want to trade Tobias. Like, so in my mind, it's like you did this so you could turn Herter into something else. And no.
Yeah, again, maybe Trajan got duped with those reports that something else is coming. Maybe like he had something lined up, and then they're like, "Ha ha," um, like it happens, right? We don't know what's going on there. Oh, now the games, man, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm like, oh, just get the playoffs to start already. I'm so ready for the playoffs to start because that's really going to determine the next step for this team. If they don't have playoff success, then it's already time for a change. With the number 1 seed comes number 1 seed expectations, right? Teams that don't believe that, if you're the number one team, you're like, oh, we're the number one team. Well, we lost in the second round or whatever. Teams that are like that, they don't win titles, right?
Yeah, I'm still excited for the games to see what JB does with his rotation. And if he keeps doing, and so I stopped tracking the rotation for a while because JB's just weird. Like for a while he had a rotation where like Javante Green wouldn't enter the game until like the second half. And then sometimes it was just weird rotation so that everybody could kind of play. And I'm just curious to see, like, because he should be getting down to his, like, okay, this is going to be my playoff rotation, and this is going to be like the 9 to 8 guys that I go with. But I could see Levert going with his health where he's available, then he's not available. And I could see us doing this thing that doesn't make sense for the rest of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when it comes to like playoff success too, like stop with the young guy stuff. I've said it since the beginning of last season. Like I'm done with you if you're still saying, "Oh, but this team is so young." Did you say that about Oklahoma City? Who was the youngest team last year in the NBA, Andy?
Oklahoma City?
What did they do?
I think they reached the ultimate goal that every team starts the season with.
They didn't say that about themselves. Again, if you're still out here, oh, yeah, Honduras, 22 years old. Yeah, well, so is Keontae George, and he's outscoring him in every metric possible and didn't get an all-star nod either. Like, you're still young. Again, Oklahoma City won the title last year, and they're the youngest team in the NBA. Like, again, throw all that stuff out. This team is ready. The whole thing of being number one seed is supposed to prove that you're ready. All the media attention, whatever, is supposed to prove you're ready. No more young guy stuff ever. I'm done with it. I mean, Trajan's message for the 2026 deadline was this team is good enough, and Ivy didn't do anything for them, right? That's the message. This team's good enough. We don't need Ivy.
So I understand when people are like, we were good when we were better when he was hurt last year, and we were even actually even better while he was out this year. I get it. And that's a case that I can't argue with. The record says the team is better. However, you can't waste an asset like that. That's my opinion. I just think it's a poor way to handle it. You couldn't We have Levert on contract for next season. Like we could have done the best we could to maximize Ivy's value and then move him if you want to, and then now give Levert the minutes. But we didn't do that. Instead, we just tanked. We tanked the player's value, and that doesn't make sense.
We could turn Levert's salary into give us a bad contract in some seconds, or we could have turned Ivy's value into like, hey, you still believe in him? Give us a pick, even if it was protected, something extra from there, which is normally what you're supposed to do. Last thing here, obviously the East. Actually, let me pull up this before I say my piece because I did see a nice comment from the NBA front office show. The top comment is from Julio Rico Gaines. So shout out Julio Rico Gaines. True, this deadline did have more happen than expected. Somehow, by the rest of the East getting better, feels like my Pistons took a step back, which I do think about that a lot. Again, think about the move Boston made with Vucevic. Think about Cleveland getting Harden. I know we don't like Harden either, but he produces. He's better than Garland, and he's much healthier than Garland as well. And then Charlotte upping its offensive firepower there. And again, if you're out there still saying like, "Oh, they can't mess with the chemistry," like even if they go bad this year, they can't change around too much. Celtics from last year, they cleared out 7 guys. In the offseason, they cleared out 7 dudes. This is a team that's already won a title. And most of those guys they cleared out were on that title team. This year at the trade deadline, how many guys did Boston move? Do you have any idea?
I'll take a guess and say 4.
Yep, they cleared out 4 guys. So in a calendar year, not even a calendar year, it's been like 9 months. The Celtics have cleared out 11 players. And they've already won a title. You identify your star or your stars and make everyone else hold a tryout year every year, year in and year out. That's what you got to do. And that's what this team needs to realize soon, hopefully. And again, really just holding off into the playoffs to see because what we say might now right now might not matter if they make a deep run, make it to the finals and whatever. Then obviously it's like okay, maybe we keep this thing together. But you and I still keep seeing like the injuries slipping a little bit. The rest of the East is a reaction to it. And again, when you're the number one dog in the yard, everybody's going to want a piece of you and try to surpass you, which I worry a little bit that the squad is like, they got the third base and they think they hit a home run, but we'll see the rest of the season and in the playoffs if that's the case or if I'm wrong.
Well, this like next 10 game stretch was supposed to be one of the more difficult stretches in the schedule. And almost no team goes through a season without a bad 10 game stretch of basketball. The Pistons haven't really had theirs yet. So when they do, how do they recover from that? How does it, because like look at the Knicks. Everybody was saying the Knicks are dead, the Knicks are done, whatever. Knicks have been playing good basketball lately. So it's like everyone goes through it. The Pistons haven't had theirs yet. The numbers say eventually they're going to have it. So when they go through that stretch, do they recover and get better, or all of a sudden do they like lose their mojo and how this thing? Because even though we're in first place, I'm not a doubter, but I don't think the margin for error is as great as what people want to think it is. Like we've already said, good shooting series from the Celtics could knock us out of the playoffs. Now with their changes, we have to see what the Celtics actually look like. When we've played the Clippers have smashed us. And oh yeah, James Harden was on that team. Now he's with Cleveland, and nobody really knows how that. And I understand his playoff history. Still, it that makes the team different. Like being the number one seed, I still don't feel super confident, unfortunately. And none of the top seeds want to end up playing against Charlotte at the end of the year if Charlotte continues to stay hot, which I know that sounds crazy, even having that come out of my mouth.
Yeah, I mean, just like I said, the offensive firepower, they have somebody that can score like 15 to 20 points at like four of their starting five pretty much right now. So yeah, it's bananas to see what'll happen there. And if LaMelo can stay healthy, well, actually, who knows if he gets hurt, maybe that might make them a little bit better team. With on off numbers, he and Paulo are like those funky superstars that people have been like, if you look at his off numbers, if you look at his defensive numbers, so yeah, maybe that might help them along the way. But it just takes one 5 game losing streak. Boston and New York again, only 3 games back, 4 games back, and then Toronto and Cleveland are like 6 games back. The gap between them and the next tier is really not that far. It might not even be a tier gap either right now, right? What you said about like the Pistons haven't faced their like adversity stretch yet, I kind of think they should just create their adversity stretch and be like, "Oh, these guys are really injured. Cade, Duran, Stu, like 5 games. See you later." Whatever they can get, so they can still try and make 65 games. But yeah, maybe create it on your own, guys. Okay, because I am very worried that those guys are a little bit more hurt and have the wear and tear, especially now that we're getting close to the All-Star break. It's like, yeah, this is probably where you should make up the injuries so you have a little bit extra time and in terms of not only the All-Star break, but then whatever week or two you gave the guys off for.
Yeah, because it's like interesting, like for the teams that like didn't have that quote unquote bad stretch during the season, like the Warriors when they had the best record in NBA history and then lost in the finals, or like the Patriots who went undefeated and then lost in the Super Bowl. It's like you kind of want your team to have their rough patch before the playoff gets here to know, like, okay, we've already been through that, we've dealt with it, we've moved on.
The team I keep thinking about with this Pistons squad is that 63 win Hawk team. Do you remember that team?
Who was on that team?
It was Teague, Forver, Damari Carroll, Paul Millsap, Al Horford.
Yes, I do remember that team now.
They murdered people in the regular season, and Mike Budenholzer coached them. And then of course they got knocked out by the Heatles, LeBron and them. So my rebuttal to that of like, oh, they might be like the 63 win Hawk team is like, yeah, but that Hawk team didn't have Cade Cunningham. So that's the X factor in it. Again, if I were running the Pistons, what would be in my mind always are the Hawks that went to the finals, Eastern Conference Finals, the Blazers that went to the Western Conference Finals. Like I'm doing my best to stay out of that because both of those squads had just like a 1 year fluke. Again, I think Cade is better than the best players on those teams, Trae Young and Damian Lillard. No offense to those guys, but I mean we've seen the defensive numbers, the playmaking, all around game of Cade Cunningham. So that's again the X factor of it. But where those teams ran into issues were thinking, oh, we just need to keep this squad together and it'll get us further. When everybody was saying you don't really have a number two or like you don't really have a defense, right? I do fear that might be the case with this squad as well. And I mean, we'll talk a little bit about this more when we do the state of the Pistons. And for me, in particular, analyzing and being an objective take on Jalen Duren is like if the reason you remove that $30 million cap hold for Ivy is because you want to throw a max at Duren and that's going to lock you into the team, then that's something of like, oof, maybe this is something that really limits how far you can go.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and I'll have to look at because I don't understand the cap gymnastics of it all, but I'm wondering if by removing that cap hold, it puts them in a better position if another team makes an offer that the Pistons have to match. But the Pistons are already going to be over the cap and they have his right. So I don't think that's an issue, but I'll have to look more into it. I'm just so disgusted with the trade deadline.
Yeah, we a lot of people think we're like the negative podcast, and we really do our best to avoid pooing 100% on things, but this is just one instance where none of it makes sense. And if you remember, I was one of the proponents of saying the Pistons shouldn't draft Ivy. So it's amazing to me that we get to this point and we're all in agreement of like, why did you trade Ivy? Like none of this made sense. Why did you give up on him? Why did you get such a low return for him? Why did you stop believing in him? He was progressing. Like I really haven't seen a Piston fan yet just celebrate that he was traded for this, either in terms of oh I'm glad he's gone or like the return. It's very rare that you see the whole fan base come together of like no, this is terrible.
And I think the problem is most people they come across as like they're an Ivy fan where they don't see any flaws. And we have pointed out all the flaws, all the issues, all that stuff. But when we look at the return, it's like it doesn't make any sense to do this. Just keep him and ride out the season. Use your traded player exception, get a couple of second round picks and move along and just ride with what you got. But for me, like this move was like just it was bad. I don't get it.
There's no chance he could do a sign and trade with anybody either. Yeah, in every possible scenario of like you don't believe in him anymore, you didn't want to pay him anymore. There was always a better way to me of getting out of this, and to say his value was this bad. Oh, there's one thing I forgot to bring up in terms of what made me kind of go bananas, and really want to curse and talk badly about Trajan Langdon. I was still kind of okay with the trade at first, looking around, and then I'm back on. Sorry, I'm trying to find this photo. I don't think that's here online, so I'm gonna pull up on my phone real quick. I'm scrolling YouTube and looking at videos for what happened during the trade deadline, and lo and behold, I see this. Oh, let me gotta turn my background off. Thanks a lot, Zoom. This is why nobody likes you. Let me turn off my background. Here we go. Oh, yeah, yeah. You're muted.
Look at that giant Jaden Ivey head.
Yeah. So they had a video of NBA trade moves. Jaren Jackson Jr. to Utah, Jaden Ivey to Chicago. When I saw that ESPN decided of the guy to feature the most in their thumbnail, the biggest picture was Jaden Ivey. That was when I was like, yeah, this is not good. This is a terrible return for him. And then they put him over Jaren Jackson Jr. for crying out loud. Like he's the face that they realize when people look at it, they're gonna be like, oh man, I can't believe Ivy got traded. And then this is the return for him. When there is that perception from the outside, And again, maybe internally other teams didn't want him, but probably the reason why other teams didn't want him is they already knew you weren't going to pay him to begin with, or that you set him up for failure. Again, you sank his value to that point to where the media still sees him as big enough to give him the you know, feature primary guy on the headline on the thumbnail, but internally, like you killed his value to where everybody in NBA doesn't want him. Again, everything about it makes no sense, and everything about it just makes me so angry because it's like, why is this guy getting so much attention from the media? And you're just like, yeah, give us some expirings and a protected pick swap. We don't even need an extra pick for him. Like it just seems to be treating the young man like trash. I just echo the sentiments of like, downtown Deuce and Boz and Jack Kelly. It's like, what did this guy do to deserve this treatment? It's been the most bizarre thing to me with Ivy between Monty Williams, between JB Bickerstaff's preference of Karis LeVert over him, and now how this organization kicked him out the door. What did he ever do to you, man? It's weird. All he ever did, it seemed, was put his hard hat on, come to work, say the right things in the media, say, I'm going to do whatever role, and then this is the end result of it. It's so stupid.
I got nothing to say except I agree with you 100%. It was, and looking back at his career with the Pistons, he has had a bizarre coaching situations to go through, and then Cade's out for a season with surgery, and then he's thrust into a role probably bigger than he could handle. The roster construction of Troy Weaver, like, if you believe in the guy, I would say, you know what? We haven't had the best 4-year situation for him. I think we can find a way to make this work, but that was never an opportunity.
Yeah. See you later, Jaden Ivey. I hope you do really well in Chicago. We're definitely rooting for you. So, yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. Hopefully, next time we can find some more things to smile and feel a little bit better about. But this trade deadline just didn't make any sense to us at all. Andy, do you have anything to add before we get out of here?
I don't, man. I'm kind of sad.
Yeah, me too. I'll go next.